this is part of a. I'm not in a position to conduct an investigation with you over this because I don't have all the facts, and I think I made it clear the day of the incident, the morning of the incident. There are a lot of unanswered questions. But at the same time, I really feel like it's very important to be as transparent as possible, to inform the community as soon as we can, as it relates to information that's involving serious incidents, and certainly I don't think anything could be any more serious than someone losing their life. So, I mean, that's why I've always advocated and encouraged members of the staff to get this information out to the community as soon as possible. And you all, the media, is certainly a vehicle that we use to get the information out. And at the same time, the day of the event, if I didn't, I should have, and I normally would make it known that it's very preliminary. So obviously, the day of the event, I share with the officers that received the run around 6:30 to respond to the alley, 2500 block between Newport and Niagara. And shortly after arriving on the scene, and they received a call for a suspicious auto. First officer arrived there, ran the tags, and it was a stolen car. Second officer arrived. The officers exit the car in an attempt several times to ask the individuals to come out of the car. Obviously, that didn't occur. And at some point, the original officer that responded to the scene, the vehicle started driving towards him, which pretty much had him between the car, and I think it was a brick wall and a fence there. And out of fear for his safety, he fired several shots, and the other officer also fired several shots, striking the driver of the car, which was a 17-year-old juvenile, and she was pronounced at the hospital. The officer, the original officer, received a fractured, by the way, broken fracture, a fracture to his leg as a result of the incident. Exactly how that came about, whether it was in an effort of him getting out of the way or being struck by the car, the investigation will hopefully answer those questions. So obviously both of the officers are in an administrative capacity pending the outcome of the investigation.
Does that mean they're assigned to a different duty or just not?
No, they're not actually. They won't be coming in at all until they're cleared. Until the case is, well, either they will be on the desk. Mm-hmm. They'll have to see our psychologists and be cleared there, and then be cleared of any criminal allegations. And once they're cleared of the criminal allegations, again, we check on their well-being to see if they're, fit enough to come back to street duty. So right now they're in administrative capacity. They're probably not working at all right now. Okay. But at some point, when it becomes, when and if it becomes clear that there's no criminal improprieties on their part, they'll be on the desk. And then we'll, have them check with the psychologist, check on their well-being, and at some point return them to duty. That's normally the protocol in which that occurs.
All right. I know y'all said you don't want to release it, but can you tell me whether or not any of the kids in the car had a gun?
No, there was not a gun in the car. No. Nor were, as it relates to the incident involving the officers, the kids were not charged.
None of the other kids?
Right, exactly.
Okay, that's not a question. All right. Now, the monitor has said, all right, we've had 4 and 7 months. I'm going to do an evaluation of the police department, what the policy says, how they carry it out, the training with these shooting and moving vehicles.
Yeah.
And that's something I really want to talk. And raise questions.
Well, let me say this. Prior to the monitor sending me that letter, the day of the incident, in conversation with the executive director, I had made a decision that we were going to probably go back a couple of years, look at every incident as it relates to an officer involved in a shooting, where a vehicle was involved. Look at those incidents. Continue to, I would tell you, have a relatively restrictive policy as it relates to vehicle pursuit. Mm-hmm. We don't pursue stolen cars, and shooting into cars. And we don't shoot into cars barring mitigating circumstances, and mitigating circumstances are that somebody's life is in immediate danger, and the officers have no other option but to shoot to protect their life or someone else's life. So shooting to vehicles is something that we don't advocate. Like I said, it have to be under the most extreme circumstances. So with all of that being said, like as I stated earlier, the day of the incident, a decision was made that I'm actually going to have a review of our policies, our procedures, review probably last couple of incidents that have occurred over the course of the last 2 years, to see, how these officers are being put in harm's way. Is there something that we can do from a training perspective to try to mitigate that? So, you're right. The monitor certainly said, notified me that he was reviewing those, but I will tell you that that was a decision that I, along with the executive manager, made prior to even being notified by the monitor.
Stephanie O'Malley, you talked about
that day, and made a decision that day. So, and obviously I've talked to the monitor, and hopefully we can kind of, respecting his independence, hoping we can kind of work together in the spirit of good government to not duplicate a lot of our efforts, because most of the information he needs, he has to get from us. So I like to think we'll be working side by side to the extent possible as it relates to looking into this.
So he does have to make
if he does, if he wants to do it totally independent, that's absolutely fine. But I'm telling you, I'm committed to having us do that, with or without his assistance as it relates to that. But I'm sure we'll compare notes at some point.
Right.
I mean, his findings and my findings I like to think that they'll probably be very similar.
And do you think it's something that could be when the officers are approaching the car, they somehow put themselves in a position where this becomes their option?
And I think we need to look at that. I mean, obviously, and I don't know if you looked at our policy, but the policy is very, very restrictive as it relates to that. So the question becomes, we're having these incidents. So is it tactically, what decisions are the officers making as it relates to that? Are they putting themselves in harm's way? And then once in harm's way, they have no other alternative once the vehicle is placing them or someone else's life is in danger? Or is the case is they're actually strategically putting themselves at the right location, and the circumstances just parlay to the point where they're being forced to protect themselves. So I mean, those are questions I think we need to continue to look at. We need to look at, and that's going to be part of my review as it relates to how come this has been happening? How many have we had? What can we do to try to mitigate these things from occurring in the future?
Who all do you, when you do a review like this, who all do you put on that?
Well, it depends on what I'm looking at. I mean, this here, obviously, I'm going to have planning play a role as it relates to looking at what other departments that are doing across the country. I mean, we don't always have all the answers. Internal affairs will play a role to some degree, because that's where we'll get a lot of the incidents. That's where they're recorded and kept over the course of the last couple of years. And then I'll probably have somebody either in training and somebody actually from my office also. So it'll be a collaborative effort from several different entities in the police department to look into this.
Is there any video footage of this? Is there money like dash cam or?
No, we don't have dash cam.
Okay.
But as you well know, we're in the process of purchasing body cams for pretty much every officer that's out there in patrol.
And they didn't have those yet.
No. We had, as you probably know, we had a grant, 6-month grant, for 100 body cams that we used in the 6th district, the downtown area. That grant has since expired. But as a result of that, and even prior to even getting the grant, I was really kind of advocating body cams. Yeah. So the mayor was 100% on board. The city council and the mayor actually approved us purchasing them. So we're in the process of purchasing somewhere around the ballpark of 800 body cams. So I'm hoping by late spring we'll have them, and the officers would have been trained on them, and they'll be in use.
We have another reporter who asked this question on her behalf that's working on a story about how police departments decide to release information in investigations like this. Some will, like, a video will be available or they'll give more. But how do y'all decide? You know, you talk a lot about transparency, but how do you decide when you release?
Well, if
a lot of people go, oh, they say they're transparent, but they're not telling us anything, and they get.
Well, we're not necessarily releasing it when you release it. Right. If it's part of a criminal investigation, I mean, we're restricted. You know, I don't. Once it becomes a criminal investigation, the DA is the lead agency, and I mean, so we're not going to do anything that would be against the DA's desire, and we're not going to do anything which is consistent with not giving out anything that can impact the outcome of the investigation. So that's not going to happen. I mean, so if it's something that is going to impact the outcome of the investigation, we're not at liberty of giving out that information. And I like to think that you or anybody, you being the media or anyone else, would want us to do that. But as it relates to when, where, and how, and all of those little nuances, you probably need to talk to Mary DeLackey. She's our attorney that works in the safety department that's ultimately responsible for releasing information. So she knows all the little nuances as it relates to what is released and when it's released and why it's released.
Right.
But I can tell you, as it relates to something that's part of an ongoing criminal investigation, we're very reluctant to release it because we don't want to compromise the investigation.
I guess that's the same too. Repeatedly these incidents, the families are like, my kid was killed and I don't know anything. They're not telling us anything. How is that? Is that hard? I mean,
we have communication either through the police department. Again, I don't want to speak for the DA or the DA. There is communication. Well, let me speak for the police department. Okay. The police department has communication with the families. Now, not every member of the family. I mean, we try to identify, who is the principal as it relates to the decedent, and we have a conversation. As it relates to, yeah, and we've already had a conversation with the parents. Our victims assistance program have already reached out to the mother and the father, and as part of it, as it relates to updating them as part of the ongoing investigation. So that would be between us and the DA. When to do that, but we've reached out to the family the day of the event.
Right.
That's been done already.
Do y'all apologize, or what do you say to a family when this happens?
I mean, a loss of life is, no matter what the circumstances are. I mean, I am certainly empathetic and sympathetic as it relates to that. So if I have the occasion to talk to family members, and sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. It just depends on the circumstances. I would tell you the first thing that I say is that we are sorry for your loss. That doesn't justify it or not justify it, but I just think, out of somebody losing a loved one, regardless of the circumstances, that's a traumatic experience. And I think that we have a responsibility to be compassionate as it relates to that.
Do you have any idea how long? And you'll do the same where DA's investigating criminal charges first.
Then we do the administrative part. Then we send it over to the monitor. And the monitor has an opportunity to comment on it or send it back to us. So then if you're asking how long it would take, again, that's not something that we have total control over. I mean, we got to wait until the DA does what they do. And then I can't control how long it takes for us to do that, but that depends on how much work needs to be done, how many witnesses that need to be interviewed. And then once we're done with it, we have to send it to the monitor. That I have no control over how long they take to review it or send it back for any follow-up questions they might have. So I cannot put a time on how long this will take, if that's what you're asking.
Okay. And then this has gotten attention from an anonymous group, and it's really social media and different websites. How do you keep this from turning into a Ferguson type situation?
Well, as it relates to the anonymous group, we continue to monitor their right to exercise their First Amendment freedom. But they are, to be honest with you, the reality of it is they're anti-police. They're confrontational, and they're looking, and to be honest, they look for confrontation. I would tell you the men and women in this department have done an exceptional job as it relates to specifically dealing with the anarchists. Anonymous is synonymous with anarchists because they're the same. So my goal is not to please them because they can't be pleased. I'm not so sure if they know what they want, other than the fact that they're anti everything. But as it relates to other citizens, they certainly have the right to demonstrate. We try to coordinate that. We try to be respectful, just like we are anonymous, of their rights to demonstrate and ensure and protect their safety like we would everyone else. But as it relates to how do you prevent something from becoming a Ferguson, I don't think any department or any city or any chief can guarantee that this will never be a Ferguson. But what I think we can do is establish relationships, establish our credibility, speak to the importance of being transparent, really connect with the community, hold each other accountable, understand the community's responsibility and desire to hold us accountable. All of those are deposits. And when those things happen, and when something happens, and these officers are going over 500,000 calls a year, so inevitably something controversial is going to happen. So if we've established those relationships, and if those officers are out in the community, and they're working with the community, partnering with the community as it relates to preventing crime and fighting crime, and when something controversial happens, and if the community believes that the department for the most part is well intended, they try to do the right thing. They're transparent. When we're right, we're right. When we're wrong, we acknowledge that we're wrong. I think it can mitigate a Ferguson from happening. But for anybody to get up to say that I guarantee you a Ferguson will never happen in my city, I question that. But I think there is a lot that we can do, and I think there's a lot that we have done. But there's certainly much more work to do that can mitigate that from occurring.
Along those lines, when I was out yesterday talking to the family and the friends that were coming by, they were like, "This is why Mexican Americans are scared of the police. This is why we're scared that people get shot. And it's the same for black guys; they get shot." And they were really expressing fear of the police. So, what can you do as a department?
I can do just what I just shared with you. I mean, we have to continue to connect and have the officers interact before something controversial happens. And the flip side of that, I think we all have a responsibility to work with the young people, to work with our children, to encourage them to do everything they can to not get themselves in situations as it relates to potentially putting themselves in harm's way at the same time. But to answer your question is, the key to the fear is to establish the relationships, and you have to establish those relationships before we're being called for a robbery or a burglary or a shooting or writing somebody a parking ticket. And that's one of the directions that we're trying to go. And that's why we've done so much as it relates to reorganization, having the same officers work the same areas, trying to create blocks of time for officers to do proactive and preventive stuff and connect with the community before those crimes occur. And we just have, we got to continue to do that. And thank goodness, over the course of the last 2 years, after going 5 years without hiring, we've been able to hire. And the significance of hiring is it affords us to have a little bit more time to do some of those proactive things.
AP reported yesterday, one of the kids in the car said the officer shot, and then the driver bumped over a lost control of the car. That's when the officer got killed.
So,
the timeline, is that correct?
Well, you know what? Again, obviously, I think I have a sense of that, but out of not guessing, and remember, I had stated earlier, there are a lot of unanswered questions. I think the investigation will show exactly what happened. I'm not so sure that it's an accurate account, but again, not to be judgmental, and in an effort not to comment before I have all the facts. Let's wait and see what what the investigation shows, and I think the investigation will speak to all those unanswered questions and allegations that people might have made. Will verify that they were accurate or inaccurate allegations or statements.
Okay. Anything else?
No, like always, I think you got it all and more.